I'd love to start, Allison, with how does a born and raised Jersey girl end up a wildcat in Arizona? Where does that transition?
Well, you know what? Actually, growing up playing soccer, I was a wildcat for many years, so it worked out well for me. But yeah, actually, growing up in New Jersey, I always wanted to move west. It actually was always something that was in my head, and Arizona was the furthest I could get in college. So when I looked at all of the places that accepted me, I said, okay, cool, going to Tucson. My dad said, no, you're not. But I went. So, and then it was just kind of a natural thing to move to LA after that. So just kind of kept going.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when you first got started, you had a wonderful look into animals. I know you guys did the paw dog stuff, and how did you get the break in out in LA? What was that first moment where you're like, okay, we can live here, we can survive here type moment?
Yeah, well, it's actually, it worked out really nicely. Everyone I met in Arizona, at the University of Arizona, a lot of people were from Los Angeles. So the transition out there was actually a lot easier than going back to, like, let's say New York, because I had made a lot of contacts and already kind of had a job when I moved out to LA. So it made that transition easy. But, after working for 5 years as a production manager for a motion graphics and design house, I really wanted to kind of get out of the office and start producing and making my own projects and, things that were exciting and kind of indie. So at that moment, I decided to leave and, produce a feature film and produce a web series because I wanted to be able to pursue both kind of paths.
Let's jump to the web series and web series as a whole. That it's become something big now. What made you strive to do that? And let's talk about some of the people in the web series. I think that's a big part of kind of why you've had a lot of success. You've done some really big web series.
Yeah, the reason why I decided to kind of take those two different paths was because I wanted to get into television. And so at the time I was underqualified for the positions I wanted and overqualified for the positions that I could get myself into. So I figured, all right, I've got to forge my own path. And I was starting to meet a lot of people who were dabbling in the web series world, because at the time it was like 2008, 2009. Yeah. And so people were starting to be really creative with what they were making. So I kind of jumped on that, and I've been in that space ever since, as well as creating feature films. I've been doing web series, and it's been exciting to see how much things have changed and the budgets have gotten bigger, and there's more eyeballs watching this stuff. So it's been a lot of fun. It's fun to look back and see the first thing I made, which is called Solo the Series, which is a sci-fi comedy. Fast forward to a couple years ago, making Vanity and getting an Emmy nomination for that, and then now working with Canvas Media Studios full time. Just all of the pilots and the projects that we're developing and pitching to television and selling to television. It's really cool to see how we've transitioned, and streaming and television has almost become one at this point.
Yeah, and looking at that indie film world, obviously it's two very different hats, but how has that experience helped hone the web series work? And when you started working full-time with Canvas, how do you jump back and forth like that?
I think coming from the indie space, we kind of think about things a little differently, and you have to still be really efficient while still being creative. So that's definitely been a reason why our projects have been successful, because even though the budgets are getting bigger, now we're competing with shows that have multi-million-dollar budgets per episode, where we may have that much for an entire season. You still have to be creative and figure out how to shoot as much content and make it look really good, really professional, high production value, but get through and make an entire season of content for a small amount of money and in a limited amount of time. So I think bringing those skills from the indie world has helped us be successful in doing that.
And you've made series that have had long runs, like 42 Seconds. You guys had a lot of episodes on that. When you transitioned that with Christina to the film, how much fun was that? That must have just been a whole new experience. Taking it like that.
Yeah, I mean, 42 Seconds of Happiness was so much fun because it was such a different way to approach telling stories. And that's why, you know, when I was introduced to Christina many years ago, I immediately wanted to be a part of it. You know, the experimentation part of it, the improv part of it, it made it so much fun, and everybody was kind of working as this, you know, kind of well-oiled machine in a strange way. You know, we were all working towards the goal of shooting the feature, which was going to finish the story, basically. So actually, when we got to set and we were filming the feature, it had been like we'd all been a family for so many years already. So to see it all kind of come together and culminate in a feature film was just really an incredible experience.
You know, that's when we all first got introduced. Was you know, the movie was brought to Dallas and Justina's festival, an award-winning experience for you guys. Let's talk about the festival circuit and being here in Austin, being a part of a festival that looks at the creators and writers and the meat behind the work. What does that mean to you to be able to go through the festival circuit like you have had?
Yeah, I mean, festivals are amazing, and we had a really great festival run with 42 Seconds of Happiness, and it's fun going to new cities, meeting new people, and also seeing how people relate to your film. And you know, in this, you know, Austin and Dallas, like everybody's just been so supportive of the indie world and the creators, so like that's what's really fun. It's like, you know, living in LA and working in LA and New York, you know, sometimes you can get kind of bogged down by the business side of things, and of course that's important too, but it's nice to walk into a space where you can be supported for your creativity, and so that was a great experience for 42 Seconds of Happiness, especially because it was such a different, like a unique process that we went through, but seeing that, you know, how it played out in a theater to an audience was rewarding.
What's it mean to be able to do or continue a relationship with Christina? I mean, now there's the Rainbow Experiment. That's got to be something special. I mean, I know with the web series there's longevity to certain shows, but to see it in the film world, that's something very different, a whole different beast. And tell a little bit about working again with someone. That must be nice.
Yeah, you know, I think with 42 Seconds of Happiness, just like every other part of the process, it was an experiment. So production was very different as well, but really fun. So going into the Rainbow Experiment, where we shot it very similarly, although it was a much bigger cast and a much bigger location and a longer shooting process, being that we had already had that experience together, we knew what we needed. I knew what Christina needed from me. She knew, you know, what she could ask for and what was possible. So really it just comes down to trust. And we had a much bigger cast, and that cast, you know, they walk in the morning, they kind of give you the side eye, like, what are we doing today? Because a lot of the time they didn't have pages, they didn't have a script, or they got us, you know, got some pages the day of. So this was just all about trust, and everybody knowing that we had already gone through it together, and some of the same actors were with us, helped everybody kind of believe and continue forward with the process and the common goal. So it definitely helped, for sure.
I'm just curious what your day-to-day life is like in LA. Like, how does your day revolve? I mean, you've got a lot of different hats on, and I mean, I know with your husband, very similar in that same world and landscape. What's your day-to-day like?
Crazy. Well, you know, it is hard. You know, at any given time, I am probably on, you know, in development or pre-production on a couple projects. You know, go into production every month or two on something, usually, and then in post on a couple projects at the same time, and then distribution. You know, this process never ends. So, you know, we're here, hopefully starting our festival circuit soon for the Rainbow Experiment. But I have 42 Seconds of Happiness coming out on Amazon Prime this week. At the same time, I have another web series in post called After Forever, and another one releasing in December called What a Lark. So it's just, you know, it's this constant revolving door of projects, which is exhausting but also really exciting. So that's what keeps me going.
You know, you've been able to dabble on the different sides of production, whether it's line producing or you know, the different forms of producing. How invaluable is that? Not a lot of producers jump outside of their realm. You've been able to do that on all the different aspects. how have you been able to do that?
Well, a lot of it I feel like is out of necessity, but also I'm the type of person that if something needs to get done and someone isn't doing it, I'm just going to do it. So, for me, when I started out in LA, I was a production manager, so I was managing accounts, talking to the client, then managing our staff of designers and editors and animators, and working up budgets and managing them. So I kind of was doing it all from the start anyway, but also had to be a creative voice in the room as well to make sure that we communicated between the different parties, right? So it's all kind of similar, and it's helpful too when you're in conversations with different creative types. You need to be able to understand what they want and what's important to them, but then also figure out how to communicate the logistical side of it, the business side of it, why we need to compromise in one spot, but maybe we can make up for it over here. So it's really beneficial to be able to talk on both sides.
With being able to have seen the web world expand, what can we expect in the next few years? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's going to get any smaller, obviously. It's going to get bigger and hopefully bigger budgets, more money, more wealth of talent. That's got to be exciting. But for you personally, how has that transition been, and what are you looking forward to?
The company that I'm working for right now, Canvas Media Studios, we're always challenging ourselves to figure out how to tell stories in new ways, and in ways that, as it relates to like new platforms and technology, and just what is storytelling evolving into, and that's been the most exciting part about being in the space, is figuring those things out and being maybe the first person to try something. So for us, while it's a little unknown right now with Facebook and Apple putting billions of dollars into content in the next year, that's exciting for us because there's a potential for creating stories in ways that we've never seen before, even augmented reality and integrating that into storytelling. So we like that stuff. We like to be challenged by the platforms and the technology and try to bring the creative to that.
Working with your husband on a side note, I'd love to hear, do you guys get to dive into your own projects on the side? And I know you guys have dabbled in some fun stuff with like Taco City and the fun element on that side. What have you been able to do with him?
Yeah, I mean the great thing about the world of filmmaking in LA and in New York, where we've been able to work on projects together, because I'm not a director, I don't ever really directly work with him. And sometimes it's because we know each other, and sometimes it's not. It's really funny being involved in a project, and somebody brings up like, "Oh, I wanna hire Rob Goki to do the music," and and they don't realize that we're married, and so it works out nicely in that way. But something like the Taco City podcast is something that we had been talking about and mulling over the idea of him doing a podcast after he wrote a book, and because of his music and sound and storytelling and being in the industry, doing the podcast actually was kind of the perfect mix of all the things that he's really good at. So in talking about how we could turn his book into a podcast that reaches a mass audience, it was kind of a no-brainer. So it's been fun to see him and support him in creating that and being able to write the music for his own project where he's not having to take notes from somebody else. He can actually write whatever he wants. So it's been really cool.
Well, Allison, I'd love for you to remind us again about the big news with 42 Seconds, but also anything else you want to tell us or where we can find more information about following Canvas and seeing what you guys are coming out with.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, this week, 42 Seconds of Happiness is going to be released on Amazon Prime, which is really exciting, and then it'll also be rolled out on other platforms over the next couple of months, and at the moment, I think this week it'll be rolled out in 15 countries, so that's really exciting to us because we have a lot of supporters in many countries around the world, Christina being a very international writer-director, so that's going to be really fun. Hopefully you'll see the Rainbow Experiment in festivals in the near future. I've got 2 series that are indie series, What a Lark, which will be on Reverie.com in December, and After Forever, hopefully in the new year, will be coming out with some information about where you can find that. And with Canvas, stay, if you follow me on Twitter, it's Allison, Alliecine, or on Instagram. I'm sure as soon as we have some more big news, I'll be posting about it. But canvasmediastudios.com is where you can find links to our, press and our announcements and stuff. And some exciting news coming up soon out of Canvas. We're doing a show that you might find on Facebook in the new year. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Any hopes to you and your husband for writing anything in the future, book-wise? Just curious.
There's Rob's always wanted to write a book about composing music, kind of the period of time between coming out of school, maybe college, and then breaking into Hollywood, because there's never really been somebody who's written about that process. So that's a possibility. And also, as we travel around and talk to people about Taco City, people keep asking, for instance, here being in Austin, people are like, why is there not a Taco City Austin book? So that certainly is a possibility too. So we'll see what happens.
Well, Allison, I really appreciate the time.
Yeah.
And can't wait to see what's coming up.
Yeah, thanks so much.